In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about appropriate evaluation of the financial tools we use in retirement planning. A previous video, which I highly recommend that you view if you haven't viewed it already, is the video in which we define and discuss the 4 different basic tools that we can use in retirement planning: liquidity, income, growth, and protection. Where we find the tools, examples of the tools, and what some of the positives are and some of the trade-offs are. Now, in this video, one thing that's very important to understand: when we utilize one tool, we pick up one end of the stick, we end up picking up the other end of the stick as well. And so we take the positive, but we also have to take the trade-off. But when we do an evaluation of a tool, or what we're utilizing for retirement planning, whatever the tool is, we have to be very careful in the evaluation process. In terms of, what do I mean by the evaluation process? Well, that means over the years, as you're looking at the results of what you're getting in any particular tool or strategy that you're using, you want to base the evaluation on the category that you're using. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say, for example, that we chose to safely grow some money in order to protect it from loss, but be able to get some maybe moderate long-term rates of growth by using a tool such as, let's say, a fixed indexed annuity, in order to safely grow some money over a period of years. And let's say that the fixed indexed annuity, we're not using it because we want income in the future. We're just wanting to do some safe growth. So let's say each year when we evaluate and look at the tool, we might compare it to other tools that we can use or could have used. But keep in mind, we only want to do the comparison in this category of tools. So in other words, we might look at other companies that offer similar types of options and to see whether or not we're keeping up with or are competitive with those other options. If I took my rate of return or my rate of growth and I tried to compare it to my securities account or my 401k account that's in the growth column, I'm comparing an orange with an apple. And so I'm going to be extremely disappointed, or you can fill in the blank there. We can't take the pros and the trade-offs, and you could, let's say, add in the trade-off column of a protection tool, that you could add that it doesn't gain as much as a similar type of growth strategy product. It might have a cap in terms of how much it can grow. So if I, at some point in time, and I say, well, you know what, this is a bad idea, because when I look at my growth column assets, I'm getting much higher rates of return than I am in this category. Well, that is not going to work well, and that's going to be an inappropriate way to evaluate your strategy long term, because you only want to evaluate the same category of options rather than try to cross from one to another. I'll give you one other example, and this is very common that I see in some conversations with clients, and that is, let's take a look at somebody who wants to use non-publicly, and you can't see this, you can't see me circling non-publicly traded REITs because it's below the line of where I'm recording the screen, non-publicly traded REITs. But the real reason for the use of incorporating non-publicly traded REITs is so that in the future you can activate or you can turn on a predictable income. So it would be in the column of predictable income, not in the column of being able to sell it at a higher price than I bought it for, which would be the growth column. So let's say X number of years into owning different non-publicly traded REITs, I say, well, here's what I paid for it, and here's what it's valued at now. 0.1 here and then 0.2 here, X number of years down the road, and you look at the two and you say, that's not a very good return on investment. Ignoring the fact that all during the years that you own the non-publicly traded REITs, you were owning more and more and more shares of the REIT, so that later on, when you turned the income on, you had more shares that were going to pay you that income. So if you instead evaluate it through the grid of growth, hey, wait a minute, I bought it at this price and now it's valued at this price. We're not using the proper category. We're not using the proper reason that we began to use the tool in the first place, which is, oh, you know what? Now, if I turn on the income at this point in time, I'm going to have X amount of income. That is what I had planned on. That is what the initial strategy called for. What we were trying to accomplish, this amount of income in the future, regardless of the fact that the market price was different, higher or lower, or whatever the case is. So if you're going to evaluate any particular strategy, make sure to evaluate it in the same category of other tools that you had the option to use and in accordance with what your original plan was. Did you use this in order to create predictable or guaranteed income in the future? And is it going to deliver that? Are you using this in order to have an accessible source of funds for liquidity? Well, we're going to have to give up the fact that it's not going to grow significantly. Are we using this primarily for long-term growth? Okay, we've got to give up the fact that it's going to give up some of those gains over the short term. And are we using a strategy to safely grow or to grow in a protected way? Well, we've got to give up certain things. So you want to make sure that when you put a plan together, you understand what are the primary goals that you have in your retirement plan. Make sure that you activate or use the proper tools that will help you to accomplish those particular priorities, and then over the years, evaluate them on the basis of what they were originally designed to do, and not cross the category and try to compare an apple and an orange in terms of whether it was a good use or not.